Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Deez, this is my workshop, and today it's time to lap. We're going to start practicing lapping. Eventually I might use the granite surface plate with some aluminum, but for today we're going to use a glass plate, and we're going to use some 220, some 500, and I might even go up to 1,000 grit sandpaper. I don't have 600 grit, so I may, depending on the finish, I may bump up to 1,000 grit. Because it's practice, I'm going to go ahead and use my mill vise stops that I made. They have the milling marks when I use the end mill to trim this down. They're flat, but you can feel just some variations. Of course, by the nature of how I made these earlier on, and they're not perfect. But I think what I would like to do is lap out all of these lines and make these things look a lot better than they are. And eventually I might try my second attempt with anodizing, but for now I just want to lap these and make them look really nice. I'm going to see if I can accomplish that and see what it turns out. I've got two of these. I'm not going to worry about the inside groove of these. I just don't want to get that detailed and mess with that. But I do plan on lapping all of the other sides as best I can. So the first thing we want to do is get these screws out of here. And this one has Allen screws. Set those aside, and there is our work pieces. So what I'll do is get things set up. I'm going to use some WD-40 as my wet dry sandpaper material. I think some people add water to that as well, just to make it a little thinner. I'm just going to start with some WD-40, and then we'll go from there. This is the only sandpaper I have. We'll see if it works out. It might leave extra black marks, but we can always wash that off. And yeah, I think the next thing is really just to get on with it. Let's go ahead and get things set up, and then we'll start lapping, see how these things turn out. All right, here's the 220. As you can see, 220 grit sandpaper. We're just going to start with this. Like I said, I'm going to use some WD-40, and we're going to start lapping the first piece, and we'll see how that turns out. Here we go. Let's start on the bottom. Going with a figure 8 pattern. I think you could also do like some linear dragging to get some really cool finish marks. I'm just trying to get all the swirl marks out that I have. It's rough, but it did get all of these lines and swirl marks out. I'm gonna go a little bit farther. You can see a couple lines and marks there, but we're gonna keep going. I think that's good enough on the bottom. Like I said, we will continue on with some finer grit sandpaper, but let's get the other sides. Now that that initial test is done, let's get the other sides cleaned down, clean all these marks up, and then we'll keep going. Well, they're pretty rough looking, but they're also, I got those milling marks out of them. So we will keep going. This one had a little bit of a dip in it. Kind of see that. So we're going to keep going. We're going to step up to a finer grit, and we'll keep moving with these. There's the 220. Let's move up to 500 grit. I'm going to go ahead and cut this piece off. A little bit of oil and we'll keep going. Start with this one. Yeah, I definitely am going to go up to 1,000 grit on this. I don't like that finish, but it's smoother. It's a difference. Do a little bit more. I'm going to move on. We'll finish all these sides and then we'll step up to 1,000 grit. Well, there's 500 grit. Smooth it out a little bit more, but it's not the finish that I'm going for. Let's get the other one done. There we go. It gets pretty messy, but that is taking off aluminum and grinding that down to a pretty smooth finish. It's not shiny. I would have to polish it on a buffing wheel or something if I wanted to make it shiny. Sorry about the fan in the background. It's air conditioner. It's hot. But there's the two pieces. Let's get this sandpaper out of the way. That's pretty much spent. Clean up some of this mess, and then I think what I'd like to do is we'll get you closer, and I may bring out the inspection plate, and we'll just, I don't know, just for giggles, we'll run an indicator across and see how flat they are or if there's any variations. It could also be my milling operation that would make them inaccurate as well, but I don't know, just kind of curious. Let's measure these out and see how they look on the plate. Well, we got the granite plate out, and we've got our lapped pieces. I don't know how accurate they are at all. They could have a variation in them. This is the test indicator that, or the surface gauge that Dave gave me, and I'm going to test it. I have not lapped it or messed with it at all. I want to see how accurate that thing is. It's probably not too bad, but I want to set this to 0. Well, this has that fine adjustment knob, which is really handy. I'm just gonna bring that over. I'm actually going to twist this over a little here and get that reading so you can see it. Let's bring this over a little bit more. And there. So the thing about this, if you watch the previous video, you will remember that Dave said that this just has a wobble. He tried to lap it and lap it and lap it. He doesn't usually stop messing with something until it's perfect, and he couldn't get it really flat like he wanted, so he passed it my way and he said, good luck, give it a try, see what you can do with it. But I think this is what he was referring to. If you push on one corner versus the next, it moves. It shouldn't do that. It should be flat. So either I have dust and debris underneath it, or it's off like he was saying. So what we're gonna do, we're not gonna move that, you know, my surface gauge here, this thing, it does the same thing, but I made that one. So we're on 0. Let's just see how flat this piece that we lapped is. The edges won't be, well, that's not good at all. Half a thou. 1.5, 2 thou. It's 2 thou from one end to the other, which kind of goes in line with the nylon V blocks that I gave Dave were 4 thou out, and he fixed them up. But if this is about half the distance what he was measuring, and here I am about 3 or 4 thou out, so that makes sense. See how these look. These are not precise. Interesting though. But yeah, if you just push on that surface gauge, yeah, if that's the surface gauge and not dust, dirt, or the surface plate that I have, I could see why he would be frustrated with that. Let's bring it down to the actual plate. Bring this over. We zero that out. Oh, yeah, it moves. Let's see, if I was just to make sure, let's make sure there's no, maybe I was on something. Yeah, I will have to mess with that. Right there it's on the 0, but watch. Huh. That's way out. 15, 20 thou. Well, let me try this one over here. Bring it right back. Hopefully you can see that. I think you can. We're zeroed out now. Again, this is really, I'm kind of going back to test the surface gauges that I have. But I was just wanting to see if one of these would show some sort of accuracy on these. I don't think so. I was really going for more of a finish. They're pretty dull. I think I would have to go even finer and then maybe a polish wheel in order to make them shiny. But they are flat and smooth. You can see some markings, but I think that's just from wiping it off with a paper towel. But if we were to push on my surface plate, it's off as well, but not as bad as that other gauge. I'm 3.5 thou from that corner, 1.5 thou on that corner, 0.5 thou up front, 2/10 right there. So I'm kind of amazed to say that this thing seems to be a little bit more accurate than this surface gauge. I'm really surprised. I could see why he would be frustrated with that. I can't believe how much that thing moves. This is a really nice piece of kit, and that's a really nice surface gauge. One of the viewers mentioned that how to use this thing properly. It's for measuring parallelism. One of these days I'm going to work with that too. That's what this ball end is for. I want to look into that sometime, but for now, I'm really surprised at how much that seems to be off. But let's move on and finish this video and see how far off these are from left to right. There's a little over 1 thou. 2 thou, a little over 2.5 thou. Again, that lines up with what Dave was seeing on my mill. So if I'm working with things on my mill, I definitely have a tram issue where I'm cutting maybe 4 thou difference over a 6-inch length. So 4 or 5 thou. Something I should address at some point. Let's just take a look at the other side here. Yeah, and the ends of these, these were early pieces I made. I didn't make them for precision in mind. I really just made them as a vice stop, and they work really well for that. But I think I know how this material, how metal will behave when I lap it now. I think might be ready to move on to lapping this base. That was really what this trial was about, to see how do you do it, what the process is, how it works out, to lap the bottom of this and see if I can get this to not have any variation once it's on here, make it completely flat. So I think our next task is to clean all this up, put this away, move on. I actually want to lap this and see if I can take out the 1 to 2 thou play in the base of this. If I can get this lapped and smooth to where I don't have any variations, then I'll feel pretty good, or at least within a 1/2 thou where this doesn't have variations. I'll be pretty happy with that. We're going to try to knock this video out. We got this lapped and it sits on here pretty well. Let's put this back on. Oh, careful. I just want to see if we took out some of that play. I don't know how much of it we would. I mean, it's not like I lapped off 4 thou of material, but it would be neat to see if we did take something out. Find this. Pretty much on the 0. And I want to push. I just want to push on the edges of this and see if that moves at all. I bet it will. I couldn't have lapped that much out of it. There's 1 thou. There's 1 thou. Not even a half a thou. Half a thou. So it improved from what it was before. I'm happy with that. I think I can improve and take that last thou out of discrepancy and have a fairly accurate surface gauge, that a homemade surface gauge of sorts that I made. It's within a thou. I think I'm going to keep working with that, get some fresh sandpaper and see if I can get that closer yet. But just even at a thou is pretty good. We're going to finish up the lapping video using try to improve this to as close as I can get to being accurate on the surface gauge as possible. This is that aluminum base. I just did a test and you can see a couple high spots on either side. So it's about a thou or 2 out, and I think we can improve this just a little bit more. I'm not going for a polished finish. What I'm going for though is flat finish, so that when I press on any of the corners we don't get any movement in the dial indicator, the dial test indicator. So I want to continue to lap this, and hopefully we can get a little bit more markings all over this and get these high spots out of here. We're really close. I mean, only a thou or 2, that's pretty darn close, but I want to continue with this and see if we can't improve this further. Make sure I got plenty of lubrication. Again, we're starting with the 220 grit. And it's a smaller piece of sandpaper, so I want to just try to go in circles if I can here. Use the whole thing. Just going to keep working that. Again, we're trying to remove 1 to 2 thou out of this thing. We are moving some material, removing some material. As you can see, it looks like it's taking off stuff equally. Took out those high spots. I think that might be pretty close to a good stopping point. Looks pretty good. Almost feel like there's a low spot here in the middle, but it did manage to, I really want all the edges and the corners to be higher. So I think that's a good start. Let's move on to the next grit. We're just gonna keep moving down the line, and hopefully we can improve this. I'm gonna go ahead and clean this glass in between so there's no additional grit in between sandpapers. Maybe that had an effect on it. Let's get our 500 grit going. We got this lapped again. You can see some marks, but this has to be improved. I really hope so anyway. Hopefully we got those high spots out of there. Let's go ahead and get this on the surface plate. It just glides on there. We are going to use our vertical rod. We're also going to use our indicator holder. Slide this in here. Let's go ahead and finish this up. I've got my tool holder set up here. Let's bring this over this way. Maybe you can see it a little bit better. I mean, it does do really good for being able to measure things, but I'm not sure that I really improved this. If I push the corners, I've still got a thou. I've still got a thou out. So this thing, it shouldn't move at all, but being that this is a flat base, it's going to be really hard to get absolute precision out of that. What I really would need is a smaller footprint on the base. Now, some of you have recommended to mill out some of the bottom of that, so I have 4 points, or maybe I could do 3 points. I'm not sure what I want to do right now, though. Pushing on that as hard as I can gives me a thou out. That's 1 thou. That's pretty accurate for a homemade surface gauge, in my opinion. It's not absolutely precise, and when you're working with a surface plate, that's kind of what you're shooting for, but for now, this is what I have. It's pretty accurate, and for the most part, if I'm going to be using that thing, it's going to be stationary to hold an indicator, test indicator, so that I can move my pieces, my work pieces around, and it does a really fine job for that. So with that, I gave you a little sampling of my journey into the art of lapping. I got a lot to learn with that. Some of my techniques may have been wrong, maybe the way I was rocking the piece, or maybe I wasn't doing the right figure eight, or who knows, it could be my technique. But I do know also that this being such a larger piece, totally flat on the bottom, that's going to just inherently, even with weather changes and temperature changes, metal expands and contracts, and that could affect that as well. So I'm pretty happy to have that within a thou of accuracy just for my use on, you know, having this on the surface plate. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and close the video out here. I appreciate you watching. Hope you enjoyed my lapping video. I will definitely be working on more lapping in the future, and I encourage you to do the same. Thanks for watching.